Hi everyone, we're going to get polar coordinates r, comma, theta, where our angle is in radians for each point. So we're given it in rectangular coordinates, and to get our r, we're just going to do the Pythagorean theorem. So it's going to be plus or minus square root of x squared plus y squared. And to get our angle, we're going to use tan of theta equals y divided by x, or our angle is inverse tan of y divided by x. Let me move this over a little bit. Just going to keep doing that. So your angle is inverse tan of y divided by x. And these are the 8 problems we're going to do. So once we get started, you can skip through some and try to do some on your own. For the first one, to get our r, we're going to do plus or minus square root of -1 squared plus -1 squared, which gives us plus or minus square root of 2. Now, in general, we want to take the plus for r. Of course, there's 3 different ways you can write the polar coordinates, or there's actually infinite number of ways to write it, but we'll go ahead and take the positive for that. We are in quadrant 3 here, so let's do tan of theta equals -1 divided by -1. So that's equal to 1. So our angle is inverse tan of 1. And that's going to be 5 pi divided by 4 in quadrant 3. Now for number 2, we're going to get r equals plus or minus square root, we're in quadrant 1 here, of 0 squared plus 12 squared. So this just equals plus or minus 12. We're going to go ahead and take the positive of that. And then our tan of theta equals 12 divided by 0. So that's where our angle is undefined. And tan is undefined at pi divided by 2. Okay. Next one, we have r equals plus or minus square root of 1/2 squared plus square root of 3 over 2 squared, and that's just going to give you 1, plus or minus 1. And we can take the positive 1, and then we do tan of theta equals square root of 3 divided by 2 divided by 1/2. Those two cancel. So tan of theta equals square root of 3. This is in quadrant 1. So that's going to be pi divided by 3. Okay, the next one, r equals plus or minus square root -2 squared plus 0 squared. That just equals plus or minus 2. Let's go ahead and take the positive for that. And then our tan of theta equals 0 divided by -2, which equals 0. So that's going to be at pi, because this is in quadrant 2. All right. The next ones, we have r equals plus or minus square root of 2 divided by 2 squared plus square root of 2 divided by 2 squared. And that's just going to equal 1. So I'll just make sure about that. Yeah, so then you're going to do tan of theta equals square root of 2 divided by 2 divided by square root of 2 divided by 2. So this equals 1. So this is plus or minus, but we're going to go ahead and take the positive. So this is quadrant 1. So tan of theta equals 1 at pi divided by 4. Right, the next one, we have r equals the square root of square root of 3 squared plus 3 squared, plus or minus. So this equals square root of 3 plus 9, which equals square root of 12. And we can write this as plus or minus 2 square root of 3. We'll go ahead and take the positive. We're in quadrant 1. So we have tan of theta equals 3 divided by square root of 3, which is the same as, if you want to rationalize this, rationalize the denominator, you get 3 square root of 3 divided by 3, which equals square root of 3. So since we're in quadrant 1, this is going to be 2 pi divided by 3. And just erase that part. All right. And then the next one is this one. So we have r equals the square root of 0 squared plus negative 4 squared plus or minus equals plus or minus 4. We're going to take the positive. Here we're in quadrant 3. Well, actually, we're on the axis. So 0, let's draw that out. 0, negative 4 is right there. So when you look at this, you're going to have tan of theta equals negative 4 divided by 0, and that equals undefined. But you can see here where your point is, and we know that this is at 3 pi divided by 2. And finally, for the last one, we have r equals, let's see, where am I at? Okay, square root of e squared plus negative e squared. So this equals square root of 2e squared, plus and minus again, which equals, you can pull out this e, so this would be plus or minus e square root of 2. We'll take the positive. We take the positive, and also we're in quadrant. Let's see what this looks like. E is close to 2.73. So it's right about in here. This was, 2.7818. This would be negative 2.718. Right about there. So that's quadrant 4. So now let's do tan of theta equals negative e divided by e, which equals negative 1. So that's going to be, remember, for inverse tan, so basically you're doing tan inverse of -1. Since we're in quadrant 4, we can't call this 7 pi over 4. We have to call it negative pi divided by 4. Because of the restrictions for tangent is between our angle. If you're in quadrant 4, it has to go from negative pi divided by 2 to pi divided by 2. And that's it. Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.